Sunday's lesson, so keep that in mind as we go through. We'll build on that. Sunday's lesson, first paragraph, says, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar had a point. God does punish evil. Unfortunately, that point didn't apply to Job's situation. Job's suffering was not a case of retributive punishment. God was not punishing him for his sins as he would do with Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. First question. As you read something like this, just as you're processing, as you're being a critical examiner, somebody who is skeptical in the sense of a microscope, a telescope, someone who looks very closely to discern truth from error, as you're reading this, do you first go, who are they citing here as authorities of truth? Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. They had a point. God does punish. So the point of Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar is that God punishes evil. That's their point. Now, if you read the book of Job to the end, what does God actually say about the point that Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar were making when they were talking about how God works? God says they were wrong. God tells Job that these guys were wrong. Does part of your mind go, wait a second, why would we be quoting three guys that God himself said were wrong about him as having a point about how God works? Some part of us should be very skeptical.
Well, didn't the lesson last week make the point that it was retributive punishment?
Yes.
So,
No, not for Job. Not for Job. Job wasn't being retributively punished, but God does do retributive punishment.
I see.
Yeah. So what does it reveal? This sadly reveals that the authors are operating under the, again, imperial law construct, the human law construct, viewing reality through the lens, thinking that God functions no different than you or I, sinful beings. Therefore, they conclude, and if understand, so we can be compassionate to people who see this. If people believe God's law works like our law, I understand why they think God has to punish. Because if God's law did work like our law, and God doesn't act to enforce his law, then it's not fair. There's no justice. So he has to act if that's how God's law works. The entire controversy is a confusion over God's very law, which is an expression of his nature. He's the creator. He builds reality. His laws are the laws upon how things work. So if sin is punished by God, though, okay, and notice where the logic leads. If they're right, God must punish evil because God's law works like our law, and Christ became sin who knew no sin. He became our substitute. Then who do you predict they will teach kills Christ?
God.
They will teach God is the source of executing Christ for justice sake. And I don't have the quotes today because we've gone over them many, many times, but in fact, many Christians do teach that at the cross, God killed his son for justice sake. And that's in Seventh-day Adventist articles, Review, Ministry Magazine, 27 Fundamentals. They teach, some theologians in the Adventist church also teach that God killed his son for justice sake. Why? Because they have the role law concept. Because I ask you, can you find anywhere in inspired sources that teach that God killed Jesus? No, you won't find it. All inspired sources teach that God didn't lay a hand on his son. Jesus died by a combination of the physical abuse and his father letting go and not intervening to stop what was happening. Christ's own testimony, my God, why have you forsaken me? Yes?